What's up, YouTube? It's Mr. Young 702 with the check-in. I swore I wasn't gonna do part 3 of this, but I'm finna do part 3 of this. Why black culture is not derived from African culture? Part 3. I actually needed my phone. I just threw it to the side. I think the common issue here is we haven't nailed down what we're talking about when we say culture. So I have people have asked me if I'm educated and everything else. So if we're going to talk about education, then I think it's okay to use the educated definition, the Webster's definition of culture. Okay? So that's what I'm doing right now. Culture. Definition. The cultivation of bacteria. Nope, that's not it. To maintain bacteria in conditions stable. Nope, that's not it. The arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. That's kind of it. But it said humans. It didn't say Africans, or it didn't say black Americans or white Americans. It said humans, all of us together. So that's really not it either. A refined understanding or appreciation of this. That's definitely not it. The customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. Ding. That sounds good. Wait, there's one more. The attitudes and behavioral characteristics of a particular social group. That's what we're talking about. That definition of culture. The customs, arts, social institutions, achievements of a particular nation, people, or social group, or the attitudes, behavior, and characteristics of a particular social group. Okay? Those are the two cultures, the two definitions of culture that I've been trying to focus on. Okay? So I think people take the customs, arts, social institutions, achievements of a particular nation or social group, that one, and they hang on to that one. But they can't get the attitudes, behaviors, and characteristics down. And to me, they go together. For instance, the arts and achievements of a particular group, right? Let's take the arts, the statues of a particular group, right? This group makes these crazy statues, and everybody has one of the statues from this particular place in Africa, right? Owning that statue doesn't just automatically give you African culture, right? Now, when that group of people looks at that statue to them is a fertility god, right? When you see the statue, it's a piece of art that connects you to the motherland. Two total groups of people, right? The same piece of art. You saying you have African culture because you have that statue in your house, right? They're saying they have African culture. They do have African culture because they made the freaking statue. But do you really have African culture? Because you're looking at the culture like it's connecting me to the motherland, and they're looking at the culture like they're worshiping. They're looking at the statue like they're worshiping it for what it's supposed to be and what it was meant to be. You don't even know how to worship a fertility god. That's not even what you do. When you want to be fertile, you go down to the clinic like every other American does, and you get a in vitro fertilization, and then you get 7 babies and have to kill 6 and have twins. That's what you do, like every other American. You don't go put the dang giant penis statue fertility god in your house and worship it until you have a baby. That's not what you do, because your behavior is not African culture. Your behavior is not part of their culture, and that's the problem. We've been arguing this whole time about arts and humanities and things and that and things and that and that. You can always go to somebody's house, hear some music, and like it and take it home. It's very simple. It's very simple. You can. You can. But because I take the music home from their house doesn't mean that I'm part of their family now. And that's the same thing with culture. You may have become a fan of African culture, but you don't have that African mentality. You don't have, and then we're talking about Africa as if Africa is one place. It's what, 30, 40 countries? I don't know, it's a lot of countries. And they have 60 countries. It's 60 countries? I will list them all, but I'll be here all day. And I probably won't remember about half of them. But it's a bunch of countries, right? Each country has its own leadership, its own mentality, its own things that it did to the world. Some of them have their own. This group of countries worships one religion mainly. This group of country worships traditional African religions mainly. This group of countries, they're all of a sudden Christian now. This group of countries, all of a sudden Muslim now. So even that, they have their own gods and everything else on top of it. So all of those different things are shaping their new mentalities. And then on top of that, they're shaping their thought patterns. You see what I'm saying? Muslims are trying to do Muslims have to deal with, okay, we're a Muslim nation now. We got to stop the idiots from trying to put in Sharia law. We want to worship Allah peacefully. We don't want to do no stupid crap, right? The Christian nations have to say, okay, we want to worship Jesus peacefully, but we got to stop the idiots from robbing people and having sex with, and the pastor having sex with them and talking about if you eat my cum, you'll release some demons. Like, this is stuff that's actually happening. It's actually happening. So if you're going to take the culture, take the whole culture. If you're going to say you're part of a culture, be part of the whole culture. You don't even have a thought process when it comes to rubbing hot stones on a 12-year-old girl's breast to stop them from growing, to keep her a virgin so that she doesn't entice a man. You don't have a thought process on female genital mutilation. Because you don't think like that, because it's not part of your culture. It's not. There's so many other parts of culture, those small idiosyncrasies. Culture can be so strong and so flimsy at the same time. Put it like this. Given that arts and humanity example. Rap. The whole United States raps. Right? It is what it is. You take a cat from LA and a cat from New York. They both rap. They're both rappers. You stand them side by side, they're going to look totally different. First off, they're just going to look different. They're not even going to dress the same. They start talking, they're not even going to speak the same. They actually start rapping, they're not even going to sound, at least they didn't used to, sound the same. And if you listen to their subject matter, they're not really talking about the same thing. This guy's talking about taking a train. This guy's talking about riding down Slauson. Two totally different things. Two totally different subject matters. Somebody who grew up in New York, I don't care how much LA music you listen to, you don't know how it feels to ride down Slauson. Somebody from LA, I don't care how many times you took that metro train that rides through LA and goes all the way to Riverside and stuff, you don't know how it feels to take the subway, to take the K train and jump the turnstiles. You just don't. You don't know that true. You don't have that true New York mentality, and they don't have that true LA mentality. No matter how much you listen to it, no matter how much you try to put. That's why LA cats don't like to see New York cats gangbanging, because it's like y'all didn't need to get caught up in this stupid stuff. Y'all had your own thing going. You see what I'm saying? Like I know cultures cross ties, but it's like, come on, man. And the same thing with this. The same thing with this African stuff. And then when they take the New York gangbanging, they took the dances and the bandanas and blah, 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 blah. But they didn't take 30 years of murders. They couldn't have. So a lot of New York gangbangers started off with just being friends, throwing up gang signs and tripping around together. That's all they knew. It was fun. It was something funny to do because their favorite rapper on the West Coast was a Blood or a Crip. Now they more serious. Now they have, because if you're going to play around with it long enough, it's going to catch a body count. It is what it is. But the same thing goes with this African culture thing. You can only take the pieces of the culture that you can take. That you can copy and duplicate. But the pieces of culture that are really who people are, you can't learn those because you haven't walked in Africa. You don't know that mentality. One more example. African dude to come to America, right? Man, I got all the freedoms in the world. I may say this. I'm not saying every African country is in bondage. Let's say he comes from one of them countries that's facing a little bit of turmoil right now, right? He'll say, man, in my country, man, I'm so glad to get out because in my country I couldn't do this. I couldn't grow. The government was oppressive. Every 2 weeks a new regime took over and that whole regime killed the last regime. We got to deal with this Republican army versus this people's army, and they're constantly fighting with each other, and it's getting out of control. I come to America, it's generally more peaceful. The government is less peaceful. The people may be a little bit more violent, but the government is far less peaceful. I mean, it's far more peaceful. And that gives me a chance to go to school, get an education. They have education. I can do all these things. I'm going to become a doctor. That's what this African guy says, right? That's his view of America. You take a brother who was born in America, and he'll be sitting on the corner, and I'm not saying everybody's doing this. I don't even want to say sitting in the corner. Ask him why he didn't take the same advantages that the African dude did, right? Because I'm going to put it like this, and tell the truth. 80% of African, or some stupid high number, I forgot, I researched a while ago, like 90% or something like that, of African immigrants are successful. It was like 70% of African immigrants are successful in math, science, engineering, and medicine. Some stupid high number. I work engineering, okay? I'm telling you, in the state of Arizona, maybe 2% of the engineers in Arizona are black. Why is it that foreigners take up so much of this and we take up so little? Because they come here and they look at education and they say, I want that. I can get that. This country has it for me. We take it and we say, we look at 80 years of being murdered. Every time we try to do something, them crackers stop us. That's what we say. They tell you that, we say it. And then when you ask a brother why he didn't take the same advantages as the African dude did, he says, the white man didn't want me to have nothing. Because we look at the white man for what he's been doing for over the years. They don't have that same connection to white people. They don't. Our culture, and the reason why we have that connection to white people is because it's a result of what America has done. Because our culture mainly is a derivative or a subculture of American culture more than it is a derivative of African culture. I'm not saying that things from African culture are not there. That's why I said things of significance. Significance got lost through that whole two videos. And people bring up little bitty things, little idiosyncrasies here and there, and I agree that those things are there. But ultimately, we do not think, we do not act like Africans. We just don't. And that's why I said, if you go to one of these African countries, you will hit a bit of culture shock, like, wow, they really are different than us. Hell, when I left Las Vegas and came to Phoenix, I was like, wow, this is culture shock. I was born in Louisiana and raised in Las Vegas. When I went back to Louisiana, I was like, wow, this is culture shock. When I visited my relatives in Texas, they just different. They do things a little different. It's cool, but it's like, wow, they really are different. I'm running up on 14 minutes, y'all. And that's how flimsy culture is. So don't try to prove to me that you got just by the simple basis of you being somewhere else, you can have a totally different culture. You can live 500 miles away from somebody else and have a totally different culture than them. You get to that border wall on the south, and if you live on the north of that wall or the south of that wall, whether if you live in the United States or in Mexico, and some Mexican people's backyards go right up to the U.S.-Mexico border wall. And there's a few places in America where they do that too. So your neighbor and you, your backyard neighbor and you can be neighbors and operate in two totally different cultures because y'all are separated by the borderline of a country. That's how flimsy culture really is. Because certain groups of people, as it said, will develop certain ideologies and certain characteristics based on what has happened to them. And something can change and they'll make them think totally different again. Dang, one more example. This video long as hell. I'm sorry. Another good example of that, right? September 10th, 2001, if somebody said terrorist, I would have thought Timothy McVeigh, and I think the rest of us would have, or the Unabomber, right? September 13th, 2 days after September 11th, 2001, all of a sudden, now when we say terrorists, we think of Osama bin Laden. Because in America, an event happened that changed the culture for all of us. Because we're actually more part of American culture than we are of African culture. Get it now? Dang. Anyway, that's my time. Mr. Young, 702. I hope we're on the same page now. Write, subscribe, email, do what you like. Peace.